Hi everybody, you're very happy with wage differentials, but now you've got this big discuss-related essay where you have to argue whether the existence of wage differentials is good or bad, and you need some evaluation in there. This video is going to give you all the points you need to smash that kind of essay. Let's look at why wage differentials might be a good thing first, where you've got some professions that pay very lowly, so you've got low wages, and you've got some professions where wages are quite high. So a big wage variance in an economy. But that could be a good thing because it promotes very strong, good incentives. If you are being paid a low wage and you know there are higher wages elsewhere, the reaction will be to educate yourself more, to gain skills, to gain the qualifications needed, to go through training periods where you can boost your productivity, you can boost your MRP and then access those higher wage professions, of course. And that's great for the individual because it means higher incomes for that person. But it's also good for the economy. Higher productivity of the labour force can bring down costs of businesses, can make the economy more internationally competitive. But it also means long-run growth, which is great because everybody in the future benefits from higher incomes. But it means through LRS shifting to the right, because of greater productivity, we get sustainable growth. So this is a great thing, the incentives that can come from wage differentials. Free market economists will talk about the trickle-down effect and how if you've got those on high wages, what they will do will actually benefit those on low wages. The high wage earners will spend their money and that will create multiplier effects throughout the economy. Demand for goods and services in the economy will pick up, and those that work in industries where the money is being spent will see higher wages, which is a great thing. Maybe job creation in those industries because demand is high there, so that's fantastic. So then those on lower wages actually see an income boost. But also those who earn a lot, because they are so productive, because what they are doing, the goods and services maybe that they are making, is in such high demand, they may actually create jobs for those on the lower end of the wage spectrum, and therefore raise wages that way by getting these guys to work for them. Absolutely. At the same time, often there is government intervention in labour markets or in the economy through progressive income tax systems. So those who are earning very, very high wages, their average tax rates, their marginal tax rates will be higher, meaning that they are paying more income tax. The government can then use that extra revenue to redistribute and give an income boost to the poor. So in that sense, we can't ignore that these higher income earners will often benefit the poor through the trickle-down effect. That's a free market idea. The encouraging of enterprise because of wage differentials is a big argument too. Entrepreneurs know that if they can find a way to really boost their MRP, if they can take a risk and that risk is extremely successful, then they can earn an extremely high wage. There is an incentive to do so. And encouraging enterprise is great for the individual entrepreneur, of course it is, through higher wages themselves. But it's great because it encourages, again, long-run growth, very good for the economy, to see innovation, to see new technology. But it's also great for the individuals at the lower end of the wage spectrum because these entrepreneurs may create jobs for them and there's higher wages for them going forward. But also what they do might drive down costs in the future, may drive down prices, which is great for everybody in the economy. But also the kind of goods and services that they are making could be great for individuals in the long term. They have access to really cool new products, new technologies, innovative new products, all great things. This is a fantastic argument, a very big argument, how the existence of wage differentials encourages work and not living in welfare or on welfare. If all the labour markets in the economy were perfectly competitive, then if you're living on welfare, there is no real incentive to get off it. Because if you get off it by educating yourself, by taking a job, gaining skills, you're only ever going to earn what everybody else is earning in the economy. You're never going to be able to earn more than that. Whereas with wage differentials, if you're living on welfare, by just educating yourself a bit, by trying to gain qualifications, grow through training, you can earn a much higher wage. So the incentive is always to get off welfare because you could be earning a much higher wage than whatever welfare benefits you might be getting right now. And that's great, of course, for the individual, but it's also good for the government because there is less strain on their finances. They don't have to pay as much unemployment benefit, and therefore good for individual taxpayers. Their taxes may not need to rise to fund this anymore. They may get tax cuts because there is less burden on the government. All good news for the economy. And wage differentials, to an extent, can promote an efficient allocation of resources, labour, to move where labour is most productive. So with wage differentials, if there is a change in the wage somewhere, then workers who have got relevant skills, specific skills, suitable skills to work in those professions will move to where the wages are higher. All right? And that is great, because then workers end up in professions where they are most productive, which is great. That provides a great boost to the economy. Overall productivity increases, overall happiness of workers increases. The wage is signalling workers to move into professions where they are most suitable, and that is a good thing. That is a good thing. Without any wage differentials, workers may not end up in the right professions for them. So it's all good to look at these very substantial points on the one hand, benefits of wage differentials, but we can't ignore some of the big problems of wage differentials either. And the biggest one is the income inequality that the existence of wage differentials can promote. Income inequality is bad, of course, for the individuals on low incomes. They live in poverty potentially, their living standards are lower. But there are issues for the economy generally as well. The government doesn't like it, of course, because then it has to fork out more unemployment benefit, more welfare spending, which is not a good thing, more strain on government finances. Not good at a time when some economies or some governments are really struggling with their budget position. At the same time, the impact on growth, a lot of research on this recently, and how large income inequalities can actually reduce growth in the long run. And that is because the poor have got the highest marginal propensity to consume. So if you restrain their income growth, you restrain spending in the economy. Whereas the rich have got the highest marginal propensity to save out of all groups in the population. So if you let these guys earn big wages and big salaries, they're not necessarily going to spend it, they're going to save a lot of it. Evidence proves that. So in the long run, you're actually restricting growth if you let income inequality persist, and that can then worsen the problem, and it snowballs. But also, we can't ignore the social costs of income inequality, the higher crime rates, the higher depression rates, anxieties, divorce rates, protesting on the streets. You know, these are all big social problems that income inequality can lead to if it goes out of control, and that leads to negative externalities. That means the government's got to spend more on police services to deal with crime rates, to deal with protests. Got to spend more on the courts to deal with the issues of crime, you know, putting away these people, providing sentences. They've got to spend more on health-related services to deal with depression rates, to deal with anxiety rates, stress levels and all of that. So issues in terms of government finances there as well. So high income inequality is not a good thing. We can also question whether the trickle-down effect will actually happen. We've made some assumptions on the one hand that may not actually hold in the real world. For example, those high income earners, those on higher wages, may save a lot of their money. As we've said, they've got a high marginal propensity to save, so the multiplier benefits we get through spending may not occur at all. So we don't see the trickle-down effect, as we mentioned. At the same time, they may send their money abroad, so maybe entrepreneurs will repatriate their profits, or ordinary individuals may move their money to other economies to try and get a good rate of return. Well, that's no good. That money isn't going around the economy and generating higher wages for those on lower wages. It's not creating jobs for those on lower wages through the multiplier effect. Issues there, the trickle-down effect does not occur. At the same time, what about if these guys are avoiding paying tax or evading paying tax? Then any redistributive policy that we've talked about on the one hand through higher tax rates for the rich will not occur. So we can question the assumptions we made on the one hand. We can also question the cause of the wage differential. And if the wage differential is coming because the government is a monopsonist employer in a certain industry, so you think teaching, you think nurses, well then we've got an issue, because dealing with the problem becomes difficult. The government itself is the cause of the problem, is the monopsonist employer. The government will never want to increase wages too quickly in these professions, because then it will lose control of inflation and the inflation target in the economy. So if the government is a monopsonist employer, wages will always stay relatively low there. It becomes very hard for the government to deal with it. So you can question the cause. Government monopsony, if that's the root cause of it, we have a big problem. Dealing with it is an issue long term. The wage variance is likely to get worse, not better. So when it comes to evaluation, what key points do you consider? Well, you need to weigh up this income inequality argument. You've got to compare the costs relative to the benefits. Are the costs here greater than the benefits that come on the one hand, the incentive benefits, for example, the trickle-down benefits? You've got to question how big income inequality is. If it's small, generally you'll get more benefits than costs, but if income inequality gets out of control, we're going to have way more of these issues than potential benefits. Okay? And in the long run, if we allow wage variances to persist, and it gets worse and worse and worse, this argument becomes a massive issue. So weigh up the income inequality argument that you've talked about. The risks of government failure. So you might be talking about how, because of wage differentials, there is a rationale for government intervention, but if you think there is a big risk of government failure, the argument might be, let these wage differentials persist, even if there are some major issues with them. If the government is going to intervene through maybe raising taxes, through imposing minimum wages, through higher unemployment benefits or general welfare, whatever it might be, they may actually make things worse, distort incentives. For example, the Laffer curve argument. For example, individuals losing their jobs, for example, through higher minimum wages. So we want to question the risks of government failure. If the risks are really, really high, even though there might be some negatives of wage differentials and they may be quite severe, let them exist because we don't want to make things worse through unnecessary government intervention. And we want to question short run versus long run. There might be some short run issues because of income inequality, but in the long run, through the trickle down effect, through the entrepreneurship benefits, etc., there might be greater benefits to individuals. Lower costs, lower prices, for example, access to amazing goods and services and new technology and innovation. Higher wages maybe even for these ordinary individuals who are being paid lowly initially because of the trickle-down effect, because of maybe the incentives taking hold and then finding a way to educate themselves. So short run may be issues, but long run better benefits. So let the wage differentials exist, fine. But you may argue there are short run issues, especially income inequality getting really large, and in the long run, because of that, we have more problems than we do benefits. So short run issues because income inequality gets out of control, and because income inequality gets out of control, in the long run, the problems only get worse. These are your key evaluation points. So hopefully now you know exactly what you need to smash this essay, all the best with it, really get into it, lots of detail here, and you'll be absolutely rocking through your exam. Thanks so much for watching, guys. See you all in the next video.